Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Tamali's classes. Knowledge is for all. Today's class will continue with the biomolecules chapter, and today I'll talk about lipids. So let's start. So, what are lipids? Lipids are macromolecules which are very essential for the functional and structural part of our living cells. Okay, so they consist of, you have heard about wax, or then oils, then fatty acids, fats. So these are all coming under the lipids. They're different from carbohydrates and proteins because the structure is completely different. Okay, like they contain carbon, they contain hydrogen, and they contain lots of oxygen in it. Also, these lipids, they are hydrophobic in nature. That means they are scared of water and they are not soluble in water. Okay, they are soluble in your solvents such as benzene, and then you have ether. Okay, so they are, so these lipids, where are they used? They are used for, mainly they have function for storing energy, and also they make up the cell membranes. That's why I told you they form a very important part, structural important role in the structural part of living cells. Okay, now these lipids, they are non-polar in nature, and like as I've told you, they are not soluble in water, but they're soluble in organic solvents such as chloroform, ether, and benzene. Okay, now what are the types of lipids? There are many types. So we have fats, we have oils, we have waxes, we have steroids, and we also have phospholipids. So let's talk about the sources of lipids. So basically, when you buy any food product, sometimes you might have seen that they have these when you look at the composition, you might have seen that some are unsaturated fats, some are unsaturated fats, some are saturated fats, or some maybe trans fats, right? So when we talk about the fats, we say that this is healthy, this is not healthy. So there are three types. Okay, unsaturated fats, saturated fats, and trans fats. So when I talk about the fatty acids part, then I'll talk that in details. So what are the foods that give you lipids? So we have eggs, then we have fish, we have nuts, okay, we have dairy products, cheese, butter. So all these things, they provide you their lipids. Okay. Now, in among these food products, again they're divided into three types, as I've told you. So when we talk about the unsaturated lipid fats, they are again two types: polyunsaturated and monounsaturated. Okay. So here we have all type of oil, such as your sunflower oil, then olive oil, canola oil, we have avocado nuts. Okay, we also have some fishes. Now, when we talk about saturated, then we talk about the vegetable fats. We have the coconut oil, palm oil. We have the condensed milk, butter, ghee, all these things. We also have different type of meat, like we have pork, we have red meat, all these things. Okay, and now trans fats, again they are the fast foods, like we have cake, fast foods, then we have chocolate, then deep fried foods. All this comes under the trans fat. So by the name, as I've told you, what are the foods, I hope you have understood which is the healthier one. So unsaturated fats is the healthier one. So whenever you go for the fats or lipids, do check this fact. Okay, now, let's classify the lipids. So, when we classify the lipids, then they can be classified into three types: simple, compound, and derived. So, today I'll talk about some of the types in this lipids chapter, and do watch my next class on the fatty acids, and also about the fats. I'll go in details in my next chapter, wherein I will give you some examples, and also something which you can relate to, because when you go for lipid test, when you go for fatty acid test, you may should then you I will clear those facts for you. Okay, so coming back, so in simple we have two types: triglycerides and we have waxes. In compound, again two type: phospholipids and glycolipids. And in derived we'll talk about the steroids. Okay, so let's start first with the simple one. So first we have the fats. Now, what are fats? See, in a fat molecule, basically, there are three fatty acid tails which are connected to one glycerol, which is a three carbon backbone. Okay. So remember this: in fats, three fatty acid tails are connected to one glycerol molecule. So I'll show you the structure in my next slide. Then this glycerol, they have three hydroxyl groups. Okay, they have three hydroxyl groups, and the fatty acid, they have this carboxyl groups, where Remember this, the glycerol hydroxyl group is connected to the carboxyl group of the fatty acid. I'll show you the diagram. Okay, so this is one thing. Number two is that here ester linkages are formed. So ester linkages are formed between the glycerol backbone and the three fatty acid tails. Okay, remember that. So between the as I told you, between the carboxyl or carbonyl group and the oxygen of the glycerol. Okay, so I'll show you the diagram, don't worry about that. Next is when we talk about these fats, so they are stored in tissues known as adipose tissue. Okay, so basically these fats, they are present in the adipocytes which form this tissue called adipose tissues. So they are present in the adipose tissues. Now since there are three fatty acid now since there are three fatty acids, so it's also known as triglycerides. Okay, now since there are three fatty acids connected to one glycerol, so it's also known as triglycerides. Remember that tri means three. Okay, so three fatty acids, so triglycerides. Now see the structure of fats out here. You can see the structure. I'll show you with the help of, so you can see here, see there are three fatty acid tails, 1, 2 and 3. So this fatty acid tails, see there's a carboxyl group out here. Okay, they are connected with the glycerol backbone. Okay, so here see three tails are there and they're attaching with the glycerol backbone. So since three, that's why it's called as triglycerides. And out here you can see this is the carboxyl group. Okay, so here ester linkages are formed. Okay, so you can see this is the mixed fat out here because there is a double bond. See out here all three are same. The three fatty acid tails can be same or this can be different. So that's why this is a mixed fat. Okay, but here you see all three are same. Fine. Now type of fatty acids. I already told you saturated fatty acids and unsaturated fatty acids. Now what are these two? See, when we talk about saturated fatty acids out here, then there is only single bond. Okay, remember this. You can see the diagram out here. Only single bond is formed here. But in unsaturated, double bond may be formed. There may be one double bond or there may be more than one double bond. Okay. Now, since there is a single bond out here, so it's a straight chain. Okay. But out here you can see here, since there's a double bond, so the chains can be bended. Okay, the chains are bended. Also, there is a cis formation or a transformation. That means out here, if it's in the same side, it's cis. If it's in the opposite side, it's a transformation. Okay. Now, understood this one? So out here, see out here, hydrogen are on the same side. So it's a cis formation. Now, suppose if this would have been in this side, then it would have been known as the transformation. Okay. So understood this part? Now, these unsaturated fatty acids, they can absorb more hydrogen atoms. Okay. And also in room temperature, these unsaturated fatty acids are liquid in form. But in room temperature, saturated fatty acids, they are solid in form and they tightly packed. Okay. And they cannot absorb more hydrogens because there is no double bond. They are single bond, so they cannot absorb more hydrogens. Also, these saturated fatty acids, they are soluble in vitamins, but these unsaturated fatty acids, they are insoluble in vitamins. Okay. Now, what are the examples out here? So, I've already told you before. So, this is present in your also in some oil such as your coconut oil. They can also be present in butter. Okay, in animal fats. And unsaturated fatty acids, they're present in some nuts. Then you have fishes. Okay, also they are present in your olive oil, canola oil. So this is more healthier. Okay, unsaturated fatty acids are more healthier. Now these are some of the examples that I've given out here. For saturated, you can see capric. The common names are given: capric, lauric, myristic, palmitic, stearic, and arachidonic. Okay, remember out here, these two are the most common: palmitic and stearic. Okay, and what is the IUPAC name out here? It's hexadecanoic and this is octadecanoic. Okay, see, understood this part? This is the condensed formula. So you should remember the condensed formula. Okay, you have to remember the IUPAC name, and this is the melting point. You can see the melting point out here. Fine. Okay, I've told you these things now. I haven't missed any. Okay, fine. This is saturated fatty acids. Now coming to the unsaturated fatty acids. Here you can see linolenic acid, and also we have the arachidonic acid. Okay, so here this is the IUPAC name. Remember this one. Okay, and we have the double bonds. How many double bonds are they? Suppose you have an exam, you have a question in the exam, like how many double bonds are present in arachidonic acid. So you have to remember there are 4 double bonds. Okay, suppose they ask you which fatty acid has 3 double bonds, you should know that. Okay, then also you have the formula out here. What's the formula of linolenic acid? You should remember that. Also, what is the formula of arachidonic acid, if you remember that. Okay, and you can see the melting point, it goes into the minus. Okay, but here all is the positive. So if you remember these things for your exams. Moving on to the next part, that is glycerides. The glycerides are basically glycerol which contains glycerides are basically lipids which contain glycerol. Okay, I've already told you about triglyceride in my previous slides. So the most important and example of glycerides is triglycerides. Now, these triglycerides these glycerides can be of 2 categories. One is the neutral glycerides and one is the phosphoglycerides. Okay, so the neutral glycerides, they have the non-polar group. Okay, so they are non-polar. Remember this. Okay, 2 groups are there of glycerides. One is the non-polar group and one is the polar. So non-polar is the neutral glycerides. Okay, neutral glycerides, and the polar one is the phosphoglycerides. Remember these 2 categories. Okay, now these both the categories I have already showed you in my previous slide. What is the structure of the triglycerides? So the glycerol, they have 3 carbon backbone. Okay, and when there is an esterification process occurring with the fatty acid, a glycerol and a fatty acid, when there is an esterification reaction, okay, ester linkages are formed, then they form a neutral glyceride. Fine. Now, and if there is a phosphoryl group, then they are forming the phosphoglycerides, and they contain a polar region. Remember that. Now, if esterification is occurring in one position, then it is a monoglyceride. If esterification is occurring in 2 positions, then diglyceride. And if it's occurring in 3 positions, then it's a triglyceride. You can see the structure out here. See the structure out here. See, this is the monoglyceride. Okay. Now this is a diglyceride. See here in 2 places, in 2 positions. You're in 1 position. And if the esterification is occurring in 3 positions, 1, 2, 3, then it's forming a triglyceride. Okay. Now wax. Next part is the wax part. Now, what are waxes? See, waxes are very easy. You have seen wax. You have seen in some plants. You have seen the leaf. They have a coating in such a way that no matter how much you dip it in water, the leaves are not getting wet. And also, there are also some birds. Okay, there are also some animals which are having this type of wax. Also, there are some synthetic waxes. Okay, so these are all coming under wax part, and basically waxes are also composed of a long chain alcohol and a long chain fatty acids. Remember this. Okay, so we'll describe this also. Okay, now see, waxes are having, remember this, long chain alcohol and a long chain fatty acids. So this is natural wax. Remember that. Okay, there are 2 types in waxes. We have natural wax and we have the synthetic wax. So in natural wax, we have an alcohol group. Okay, we have an alcohol group and a long chain fatty acid. But in synthetic wax, there is no functional group. Okay, they contain long chain hydrocarbons and they do not contain any functional groups. This is the difference between the natural wax and synthetic wax. Then we come into the natural wax. Again, there are 2 types. We have animal wax and we have plant wax. Now, for animal wax, what do they contain? They are obtained from the carboxylic acids and fatty alcohols. Remember that, okay? They are obtained from the carboxylic acid and fatty alcohol. But what are the plant waxes derived from? Plant waxes are derived from long chain hydrocarbons which contains functional group. Okay, so what's the difference between out here? See, in this here we are talking about direct carboxylic acid and fatty alcohol. But here, no, they're not saying direct carboxylic acid. They are saying they contain functional groups. And it's a mixture of long chain hydrocarbons. But here they are saying fatty alcohols. The difference. Okay. Now, as you know that waxes, they're insoluble in water. Okay, and they are mostly solid in temperature in biological temperatures. One more thing, very important thing is that what is the component of wax? So you have to remember this very important term called as myricyl palmitate. So myricyl palmitate, this is the component of wax. Because of this, um, the waxy, you can say, when you touch it, you will get a waxy feeling on the surface of a leaf or uh, any other wax surface. My voice is broken, so sorry for that. Kindly bear with it. Now, come to synthetic waxes. I've already told you what is that. The structure I've already explained to you. Now, what is the example of synthetic wax? So we have paraffin wax, okay, which is again derived from petroleum and it is obtained by vacuum distillation. And synthetic waxes, they can be obtained from they can also be obtained from polyethylene. One is petroleum, one is polyethylene. Okay, so synthetic wax, they can be used in cosmetics, in food, and also in adhesives. Okay, and this natural wax example is bee wax, very common beeswax. Okay, this is natural wax, and in synthetic wax we have the paraffin wax. Okay, this waxes, what do they do? What is the function of wax? They play a protective uh, role. You have seen in water plants, aquatic plants, right? They have the waxy coat on the surface of the leaf, so that is how they can survive in the water. So similarly, there are many animals also which have this quality, which have this property. So this wax part, they play a protective role which helps the plant and the animals to stay in water. Okay, now let's talk about the phospholipids part. So in phospholipids part, we'll talk about what is it. Okay, so they are specialized cell. So you have seen that in cell membrane this is present. Okay, so they are very important phospholipids because they are present in the plasma membrane. You know what is plasma membrane, where it is present? Okay, so plasma membrane is present between the inner membrane and the cell wall. Okay, so the cytoplasm and the cell wall, it is present between these two. Okay, so in animals, plasma membrane is the outer covering. Okay, but in plant cells, cell wall is the outer covering, and then the second membrane is the plasma membrane. So these phospholipids, they are very important because they form the structural part of cells. And what happens in what's the structure of phospholipids? So basically, again, they are composed of fatty acid chains which are attached to backbone of glycerol. Okay, so even here same thing, they have the fatty acid chains and the backbone of glycerol. Okay, and they form very important again, the structure is bilayer, remember that. Okay, they form the bilayer form. Fine, because what is bilayer? Because there are two layers. So some of the phosphate heads, they are facing the water. Okay, and the tails are towards the inside part. Now remember one thing, this phospholipid is also known as the amphipathic molecule. Amphipathic means there are two parts. As I told you, they form a bilayer. So there are two parts. One is the hydrophobic part and one is the hydrophilic. See, by name you can understand hydrophobic. Phobic means fear. So hydrophobic means fear of water. And hydrophilic, philic means loving. So this is water loving. Okay, there are two parts. Water loving and water fearing. Okay. So the fatty acid chains, they are hydrophobic in nature. That means what will happen? They are not present towards the water. They are present towards the internal part. Okay, and the hydrophilic part, they are facing the water. Fine. So remember that. Okay, so fatty acid chains, they are hydrophobic, but the phosphate containing group, okay, that is the hydrophilic, and they react with the water. Remember this, very very important. In phospholipid bilayer membrane, the fatty acids, they are the hydrophobic, so they will stay away from the water, and the phosphate containing group, they are hydrophilic, so they will be towards the water. So in this phospholipids, there are two, remember there are two fatty acids, okay, and the in the third carbon of the glycerol backbone, the phosphate group is present. So let's see the structure out here. So you can see how to see this is the glycerol part, and glycerol you can see the third one. Okay, see the third carbon, the phosphate group is present, and in fatty acids only two. Okay, I told you already. In fatty acids only two will be present. There are not three fatty acids, but only two fatty acids. Okay, and this is the hydrophobic part. Already told you, fatty acids is the hydrophobic part, but the group containing the phosphate group, it is the hydrophilic part. This is structure of phospholipids. Remember that. Fine. Now moving on to steroids, which is the last part of the lipids, last type of the lipids. So in steroids, it's again very very important. But remember, they are different from the other lipids because they are containing four fused rings. You can see out here. See, four fused rings, four fused rings. So what is the example of steroids? We have cholesterol and we have cortisol. Very very important. Okay. So again, steroids also, they are same. They are hydrophobic in nature and they're insoluble in water. Okay, but they're very, very different from other lipids. So we'll talk about the cholesterol, again very important. In my next class I'll talk details how it is related, and how you can understand if you have liver problems or not, if how much cholesterol you have, what food you should eat, what food you should avoid. We'll talk about that in my next class. Okay, so here we'll talk about the cholesterol. So cholesterol is synthesized in the liver. Okay, so cholesterol is synthesized in the liver. It is the precursor to the sex hormones such as testosterone and estradiol. Okay, so I've already talked about the sex hormones in my hormone chapter. You can move to that chapter. Now cholesterol, they are also sometimes the starting material for important molecules in the body, such as vitamin D and bile acids. Again, they're very, very important for digestion process, and also they're important for absorption of fats. Okay. Now, cholesterol again forms a very, very important component of cell membranes. Okay. Also responsible for the fluidity and dynamics of cell membrane. And now cholesterol again have two types. There is HDL and there is LDL. I hope you have heard about it. If you are careful about your diet and all, you might have heard about it. So cholesterol again, they can be divided into two type. Okay, one is HDL and LDL. So HDL is high density lipoproteins and LDL is your low density lipoproteins. So remember that if HDL is more, it is a good cholesterol, but LDL, it is a bad cholesterol. So remember, HDL should be more, but LDL should be less. Okay. So what are the food that will give you that? You already know. So if you have some nuts and all, so they will give you good HDL, and if you have some fat meats and all those things, they'll give you LDL. They will give you low density lipoproteins. Okay, so remember that. So they have a very good and bad effect on your cardiovascular health, or you can say on your heart. So you have to be very very important. You have to be very very careful about cholesterol in your blood. So we'll talk about it in the next class. So you remember that whenever you have any type of cholesterol, any sort of cholesterol, make sure, make like to know that what type of cholesterol you're consuming, if it's a HDL type or if it's an LDL type. Okay, now what is the importance of lipids? I've already told you that lipids, they store energy and they provide insulation. Okay, they provide the insulation. Also they make up the cell membranes. Okay, and they are responsible for the water repellent nature of leaves, and these lipids, they're also forming the building blocks of hormones. I've already told you about the sex hormones. Okay, now fats are also responsible for, they also act as chemical messengers. Okay, and they're helpful for cholesterol formation, which is very very important, and also for wax. Okay, they're also one type of wax, is also one type of lipids. So I've already told you that in some birds, in some the leaf, we have this wax. Okay, so they help in the protective role of, they are playing a protective role in these organisms. Okay, so this is all about the lipids. Now coming to some interesting facts about lipids. As I've already told you that lipids are different from other biomolecules because they are hydrophobic in nature. You have seen in proteins, vitamins, we have seen in your after talking carbohydrates. So they are all soluble in water, but in lipids they are insoluble in water. Okay, they are more soluble in your organic solvents. Okay, now and say because they have been because the reason because they are hydrophobic in nature. Okay, now other interesting facts is that people who are having diabetes, if you check their lipid profile, you will see that their lipid is somehow the metabolism is disordered, or you can say that the lipid levels are not in a proper, not proper balanced. Okay, like you can see the triacylglycerides and your phosphatidylcholines. So phosphatidylcholines and triacylglycerides, the levels are not normal. Okay. Also, when we talk about human brain, the human brain it also needs lipids. Okay, so this lipid profile is very very complex in the human brain. Okay, because they have gangliosides, they have sphingomyelins, and they also have phospholipids. So this brain, it requires good lipids, remember that. Okay, because people who are suffering from depression, if you check the lipid profile, you will see that the lipid metabolism is not good. Okay, the lipid framework is not good, it's changed from a normal person who is not suffering from depression. Also, cancer cells. Okay, so cancer cells, what happens when a person is suffering from cancer, the metabolism is changed. Okay, it is reprogrammed, which affects the phospholipid. Okay, now it has been seen with when you block the synthesis of phospholipids, what will happen, especially in those patients who are suffering from triple negative breast cancer. So in those patients, if you um, inhibit or if you block the phospholipid synthesis, then it will also block the tumor growth. Okay, it will also block the tumor growth. So these are some of the facts about lipids. And one more thing I would like to say, that in lipids there are many compounds, like we have seen wax, phospholipids, steroids, we have seen triglycerides. Okay, so we have seen fats. So these are all coming under lipids, but their structure, their function is all different. Okay, that's also a very interesting fact about lipids. Though they are all known as lipids, but their structure is different, their function is different, and they are not same. And also lipids are very very unique, other than the from the other biomolecules. Okay, so here I will end my class. Not yeah, class. So if you have liked the video, do like it, and do share it with your friends who are also studying with you, and do subscribe to my channel for more such videos. I'll keep on posting such videos, and if you have any suggestions, you can suggest me which topic would you like to know. Okay, so thank you so much for attending my class, and hope to see you and hear from you. Okay, bye bye, and have a nice day.